want to stop. It's not a big deal, not a crisis. So whatever you want to do. If you're just like, Dave, never mind. I'm like, okay.
Oh.
So I just want you to be comfortable and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And you just helped me pad my channel, so because I haven't made anything in forever.
Yeah.
So I just, I really appreciate you coming out.
Oh, yeah. Anytime.
Cool. Okay. Well, I just want to say hello. I'm David Hunt, owner of GameMasters Guild, and welcome back to my latest RPG discussion, which is Be New to Role-Playing Games. Now today I have my good friend Cliff here, and I really appreciate you coming out. And I don't know how long exactly you've been role-playing, because I don't think we haven't actually talked about this. It sounds like you're still probably newer to it than me. Well, let's see. So when did you get into role-playing? Let's put that. How far back did you get role-playing? Because I did it I was in the 6th grade, and that was, early 80s?
Yeah, so I would say I actually didn't get into role-playing, tabletop role-playing D&D until after I retired out of the Air Force.
And when was that?
Like 3 years ago.
So that'd be like 2021.
Yeah.
Okay, so you are super new. Wow, you're even super new, because you used to play with us and Calvin.
Right.
So, wow, okay.
So,
and he was pretty new to it.
So, like Calvin and Glenn's game, that is literally the first game I ever played.
That was really?
Yeah.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, I ran into Glenn while we were at the store and sitting there talking, and I was like, "Hey, you still play and stuff?" He goes, "Yeah." And I was like, "I've got some extra time now. You mind if I come over and check it out?" No, come on over. So ever since then, I'm like, oh, I can definitely get into this. Now, I would say when I was a kid, I was exposed to it.
Okay.
There was a couple of guys that I hung out with that had played, had asked me to come over, or I don't know if it was just the type of game they were playing. I think it was, Vampire Masquerade or something like that. And it was just a very different vibe than something I was comfortable with at that time. But with Glenn and those dudes, it was very, I would say, it just good social interaction more than anything.
Now I know we basically got the same friend circle. So how long have you known Glenn?
So I've actually known Glenn probably 13 years.
Oh, okay.
So it just so happens that he and I were working together when he was in Tyndall.
Okay.
So, he and I were in the same shop and everything. Now I was actually one of his trainers, supervisors.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. I'd always wondered how that all worked out, because I know I met Glenn through John, and so we were playing before he was even in the Air Force. So I think I got 2 or 3 years up on you, maybe, I think. Yeah. But not by much. So, that's kind of neat. I never knew that.
Yeah, so and it's one of those things where, of course we worked together, and then, years separated, shepherd and all that kind of stuff. And it just so happens that when we came back here, we're in the same shop again. I hadn't seen him in forever.
Okay.
So remember, in my little heritage room that I have, has that picture on the wall of the 22?
Yeah.
His signature's on.
Oh, that's cool. I'll have to look at that next time I'm over. That's super cool. Okay, so now that we know when and who got you into it, now what exactly was your first game? You said it was that 1.5e game that we were all playing?
So, yeah, it would have been, I think it wasn't Icewind Dale. I think it was one before that or something.
Okay.
And I kind of stepped in. But, yeah, I can't remember what the original module was, because
Was it like Lost Mines of Phandelver, was it?
No, it was the campaign right before we jumped into Icewind.
Strahd. Was it Strahd?
No, because Strahd is the one we just wrapped up.
Oh, okay.
So it was we did one more before we did Icewind Dale. I don't remember what it was.
Okay, I can't think of what it is either.
I think it really for me it was. I didn't understand, all the modules and all of that stuff at that point, so I didn't really grasp. I knew that there was a storyline that we were trying to follow, that there was books associated with it. I think that's probably why I didn't catch on as much.
So, but 5th edition was your first game, just generally speaking.
Yeah, 5th edition D&D. Yeah.
So now, what is it about the first game that made you stay with it? Because just because you knew Glenn and played in his game and stuff doesn't mean that you were going to stick with it, that you even liked it. But what made you really want to stay with it?
So I think there was 2 real things. First, the party, and I say the party as in the people that were involved. I think everybody over there, of course, they really friendly and welcome me in with open arms. And the biggest thing for me, I had no idea what I was doing. So when it came to checking any type of roll or doing any type of check, it took me forever to just figure out my character sheet. So they were really good of holding my hand and guiding me through all of that. So I didn't feel like the guy that was the newbie who had nobody like helping him.
Okay.
Yeah, and it was everybody too. So the DM was helping me, the person next to me was helping me, and then so I think that was one of the big things that kept me around. And then I would say the other thing is I really like the kind of the lore behind what's going on, and looking at a dungeon and looking at a situation from a tactical perspective. What's the best way to address this obstacle or this conversation or whatever to get the most benefit. So I always thought that was really interesting. And it's funny too because everybody has their way that they want to do it, and then you have those people who really embrace how they think their character would really want to do it. And sometimes that has clashed, obviously, but I think when you have the people who are really passionate about who their character is, and they get into character and they do the thing, I think that's was a big selling point for me as well.
That's cool, and I laugh just because I know some of these people, and because it's the same friend group, and I can see some of these things play out in my mind, and it doesn't matter if I'm playing with them or I'm DMing for all you guys. Then it's I can see it very plainly.
Right.
And of course, even when I'm a player, I'm like that too.
Yeah.
No, that's very cool.
When you have players who dress up, and I think that was a big thing for me too. I always think the cosplay thing where you really just go overboard and really embrace the character through something you wear. I always thought that was fun for me.
Yeah.
But when you have that same person who goes upstairs to answer the door when the pizza comes while he's still wearing this wizard hat, and then in character saying, you've come to my house, that stuff's classic.
That was great. I do like that. Anyone's listening who knows that was the great wizard Xenaros, and he knows who he is.
Oh, yeah.
That pizza guy, man, I wish I could have been there. I mean, the video was great.
Face,
Oh my, he had a story to tell when he got back.
Oh, yeah.
Or maybe not. Maybe he's like, I'm not going to tell anyone anything. Oh, geez. Okay, so I guess maybe you're definitely an experienced player now, I would say, after 3 years. But you're still at that cusp of getting out of new and being experienced, I feel. So as a new player, some of this probably might be real fresh for you. Is there anything that you wish you'd done differently, or were there any mistakes that you felt you made as a new player?
So I think the biggest thing that I still struggle with to this day is really understanding how I get the stats on the character sheet, and then tracking all of the call them triggers or whatever when it comes to combat. I really wish that I would have gotten into the books more and built my character sheet based on my understanding of the books. I think I relied a little bit too heavily on D&D Beyond to kind of do it for me. Mm-hmm. So then I didn't have to understand how those numbers got there. So when somebody asked, like, well, how did you get that? I was like, I don't know. D&D Beyond told me that's what it is. And I think I still struggle on that, and I still use that as a crutch for me not getting into the books more and understanding how the point system is allocated, and when you level up, what happens with feats, what happens with this, that, and the other thing. So I think this.
But now a lot of that's kind of behind the scenes, though. I mean, do you think that really affects you actually play-wise, while you're actually playing?
So I think it comes
Does it really worry? Does it worry you?
I think it comes down to when we get into situations in combat, or in a dungeon where you have traps and stuff, and we're doing checks, or I want to try to do something. Well, it's clearly not something I can do, but I think I can, right? So I think it's just understanding how to apply those things. If I could go to the book and say, okay, I can do this because this paragraph tells me to, instead of just kind of relying on what's in front of me. So,
Okay, I see.
yeah.
Okay. See, is there anything else that you think that maybe you might feel at a disadvantage with, since you're a newer player playing the game?
I think the other thing too is, as far as like mistakes and just the struggle bus, is really when it comes down to when you're getting into a situation when you're being asked questions by the DM.
Mm-hmm.
And so, what are you doing? We get into a town, what are you doing? That on the spot, trying to think about, okay, well, I don't know what I want to do. I just got here, rather than like, well, maybe at this point I should know that we're in a town where we have something we got to do. Do I want to go to a shop? Do I want to talk to somebody? Do I want to go, try to mug somebody? Whatever the case may be. I think when it's all right, what are you doing? And I get the look by the DM, and it's like a deer in headlights. Like, I don't know. Am I supposed to be doing something? I think that's where I've struggled in the past before, or trying to come up with, something on the fly as far as what my character's off and doing, some type of, expanding on the story or the backstory or something like that to make the conversation more interesting.
I think that's kind of I think there's another side of that coin too, because like, let's say when I'm running you guys and you and your group comes to town and I say, all right, Cliff, what's your character doing? I think part of that is me going, oh my gosh, I don't want to be on the spotlight because I'm the DM. I got 4 or 5 dudes looking at me waiting for me to tell them the rest of the story. I'm going to ask Cliff what's going on and put him on the spot for a minute so I get a break and so I can think about it.
Yeah. And so how do you deal with that situation where you ask somebody what they're doing, or you ask the party what they're doing, and then the party, they have absolutely no idea what they're supposed to be doing, and then you have to kind of ride the line between guiding them in the right direction, or do you just kind of let it?
Well, for starters, I'm trying to give everybody an option. Like, if they got something in mind that they want to do, that they can go do. Sometimes it's pretty innocuous actions. I just want to make sure everybody gets a shot at to do something if there's kind of like a lull in the adventure. But also, too, I suppose that if nobody has anything, I can easily go, okay, good, and I can kind of gently push you on to the next section. But then
you're approached by so and so, or
whatever.
Yeah.
I can kind of hand wave it. So you guys go eat, and you spend some gold, take it off your character sheet, and now you go to bed. And the next day comes, and I can just get you going, or insert action here, But then again, on the other side of that, if it's not just mundane stuff like, well, I want to go buy this, I want to go talk to this person, it could very well easily be someone says, well, now I want to go across town, I want to sneak into this place, I want to kidnap this guy, we're going to question him about this, then we're going to go here. And I'm like, I didn't even know that was even going to be a thing. When did you guys even think about this? And now I got to worry about all this extra stuff that I had no plans for.
Like, I forgot
pull
this
it out
guy
of my
was
butt.
in this town.
Oh my gosh, it's crazy. So there's a lot of different ways to look at it. It's just as easy for me, but it's very difficult sometimes too when players really want to do some different stuff. But I'm excited when they want to branch off. But at the same time, I'm kind of like, oh man, just say you're going to bed. So.
Yeah.
So many different nuances between what the players do and what I ask, and
I think too, the biggest thing, being between homebrew or in a module where you're following something that's pretty much dictated in front of you, that changes stuff too.
I like homebrew because I have more freedom. I can kind of change things up. I've always been like that. For me, a module makes it too linear, but I played a decent number of modules, and it is kind of refreshing because I can always come back to the path well traveled after we've gone off on the beaten path, and it does kind of help to have just a module, because sometimes when I'm homebrew, I totally, and I'm not afraid to admit it, I get myself in some weird spots, and I'm just like, oh, what did I do? You know?
I think the only thing that I'm not in my experience with following a module where everything is pretty much dictated, is there's a lot of direct reading and not really just kind of going with it and explaining the character. Now that's probably DM worthy, but there's those certain instances where you literally have to read what's in the module for them to get what they need from that instance. And to me, like, when somebody's sitting there like reading the book to you, then you kind of lose the
kind of takes you out just a little bit.
Yeah, because the theater of the mind goes away. The whole interaction becomes very blocky until you get through that, and then it kind of flows out.
I think that's why I like homebrew, because it feels more organic, but also too, again, I can work myself into kind of a weird corner where players can do something that I totally didn't expect and don't have a backup plan for, which can be a little troublesome.
Yeah.
But it's not about what makes it problematic for me, though. I mean, it's all about you today. So let's see. What about, now I know you do this, playing in character. How do you like to play in character? I mean, I know how you like to play in character. I've seen it and heard it on many occasions. But what do you like to do? Tell people, what do you like doing? First of all, why do you play in character the way you do? And what made you want to play in character?
So, I think it's because, when it comes to, doing stuff for Halloween or whatever, anytime you're dressing up and you're trying to take on this new persona, like for me, partially, I like to have fun with everything that I do, right? And that's, I think, when you are in those groups or you're in those situations, you're with, I would say, like-minded people. You just kind of be yourself, and as crazy or as goofy as you want to be. And by really coming in there and dressing up and embracing the thing, it just seems like more. It makes the experience more light and people enjoy it more. So I think that's kind of why I do it. And now it's almost like, all right, what is he doing this time? Just because. I do struggle with like voices, altering voices or sticking with some type of thing as far as a character's persona when they're talking. Some of our friends are really good at it to where they can go into their character's way of talking. I think I struggle with it because one of those things of hearing your own voice sounds weird. So then when I try to do some type of like impersonation or whatever, it's kind of like, well, do I really want to almost like embarrass myself when I really have to worry about it.
Now, do you feel, because a lot of the other guys in the group do that sort of thing, they like to role play more and they bring out the voices and characters, maybe dress up, do you feel compelled? Do you think you feel compelled because of the others, or do you still feel comfortable just kind of like well, I'm just gonna say this is what my character does, versus kind of throwing in a voice or.
Well, and I think it's you see Xanros, or you see Derek's character or whatever, where they really get into it and they kind of embody that. So it almost inspires you to try to bring that same amount of energy to the thing, so everybody is kind of equalizing the deal. But sometimes, I think it really just depended on the day, where it's like, do I really want to put all that energy into this, or just kind of talk through it, But
I think though that's sometimes kind of nice when you're not always with that mindset, because then when you do like play in character and you can tell everybody tries to play in character a little bit, but I think it's when you take a break from it and then you really get into character for a certain scene or something like that maybe you hadn't done for a few sessions, then I almost think that brings more to the table, because it's like everybody's, instead of, oh, it's Cliff's character again, it's like, oh, what's Cliff doing? This is something, he hasn't done this in a couple sessions. This is cool. Let's really focus. And I think that's kind of neat.
Yeah. So, I mean, from the DM perspective, I think you're pretty good at, giving NPCs their own voices, their own personalities, and those types of things. Does it get hard? You kind of like trying to juggle like this voice versus that voice, or you just roll with whatever comes out?
There's always a few characters that I kind of get behind. I'm already kind of ahead of the game. I I know what I want this character to be. And a lot of times, for most NPCs, it's a hand wave. Oh, look, it's Jasa Ord, and she says blah, 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 blah.
Right.
It's kind of a hand wave because I'm like, man, I can't do this for every single character,
Right.
And especially with the same energy level. And not all NPCs need to get the extra special treatment, though,
Yeah.
Sometimes, usually it's the villains that get the good monologues and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Where that one NPC, and usually if it's a good NPC, usually a villain I can kind of throw down right away.
Right.
But a good NPC, like a good guy character or just a neutral character, he's really got to kind of get built up first. And some of that I let the players do. If the players seem interested in a certain character and a certain NPC, then I kind of build them up just a little bit more and a little bit more.
Give him more personality.
Yeah, until he seems to either fit in or I kick him out,
Yeah.
Because, sometimes some NPCs players are just like, oh, yeah, here you go. There's a story years ago I had. I won't take too long. But I had this character. I watched this movie like Lion in the Darkness, and it's all about these two lions, these man-eaters that attacked like this...
Ghost in the Darkness.
Yeah, Ghost in the Darkness in Africa, decades ago. I was inspired by that. I made a tribal guy. My players are all out on a Serengeti kind of plane, and I tried to kind of loosely base my guy heavily on it. And the characters meet him. We're playing AD&D, and I have this story, and I try to kind of work it out just right. I don't think anyone had really seen that particular movie. And then at the end of my whole spiel, one of my players goes, "Oh man, that's a really hard luck story there, pal. Here's some gold. Hey, where's the tavern?" I mean, literally just like that. I'm like, "Oh crap!" And I'm like, "Well, I just threw that character away later that night." But then I had another time where we're playing. It had this blacksmith, totally nondescript blacksmith, right? I don't know if I told you this story. He had like a little shanty blacksmith shop. It was crappy. He was rude. I had no backstory for him, except I said, just to add a little detail, a little contrast to this guy, I said, but you notice there's one really nice sword in the back. It's like this claymore. And you can tell that out of everything here, it gets the love. He takes care of it. He oils it every day, everything. But you can see it. It's always sitting in the same corner every day, never touches it. And the most the guy ever says, I was a soldier once upon a time. And he goes back to work and, says, what do you want?
Yeah.
And players were obsessed with him, wouldn't leave him alone, trying to get him on an adventure. And I'm like, no one wants the guy who has backstory and is really cool and I'm behind him, but everybody wants the guy that I have no clue, that I don't have anything for.
Yeah, so maybe it's like the mystery, the
I think so.
The attraction to, why is that, how legit is this guy with that claymore?
It's like if you can't have it, you want it even more.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I definitely think there's something there. That's why I try not to try so hard anymore. And I just let NPCs just kind of become important. Yeah. And it's interesting how if I just kind of put some NPCs on the back burner and like, oh, yeah, they're okay. And then, something happens to them and the players are suddenly all over it. I'm like, oh, crap, okay. Yeah. But that's kind of nice. Makes my job easier.
Yeah.
So I said, I got to get away from myself there a little bit. I'll talk about myself all night. Okay, so if you really only just played with our group between like me and James and Glenn, is that pretty much the group you've been? You haven't been anywhere else playing any other groups?
No. I mean that's Glenn, James. Of course, Corey had a campaign that he's running.
Oh yeah. I forgot about Corey's campaign. Of course, I wasn't in that either.
Yeah.
So.
But pretty much I think the one that was kind of the one-off was when Corey did the evil campaign at his house, where it was his sister and some other players that we hadn't got to play with. Caleb was in that game for a second too, but yeah.
Cool. And let's see. I want to know you have actually played a couple different ones now. Before I move on to the next question, because it's mostly 5e, but I know you played the Alien RPG that we did, the sci-fi. Now, how would you rate your experience between doing the Alien RPG versus any fantasy? I mean, there's basically sci-fi horror versus fantasy. I mean, where do you think that needle lands for you? Do you like a both? Is somewhere in the middle? Now, you've played a lot more fantasy than you have sci-fi horror, but just out of curiosity, what do you think about that?
So I think if I had to match them up, I think the 5e, where there's so much stuff to draw into story and kind of do this and do that, and you kind of get more about your character and how they interact with the world. I think in stark contrast with like the sci-fi horror, yeah, you're kind of into your character and how he does things, but it's more about what you're dealing with in those, very intense situations. Yeah, I mean, you'll have conversations on the side where you're doing RP, but then RP when an alien is chasing you, I think is a little bit more intense and a little bit. And I like the simplicity of roll these dice. This is what you get. You don't have to worry about a D4 or a D6 or a D8 or whatever the case may be. You got all D6s. It's either going to be good for you or it's going to be bad for you.
Oh yeah.
So I think I kind of like that simplicity in just, all right, roll this, and that's the thing. You have to think about, okay, well, I'm going to use a bow and arrow, or I'm going to use this. It's all on the same dice. So.
Okay, I see. Yeah, there's really no armor class or anything, if I remember correctly, with Alien. It's just you got all the D6s. Anytime you roll a D6, every time you roll 6 on a 6-sided die, that's just a success. You make it.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I think that game was much more brutal too, because at first when I was trying to figure out how I thought I knew combat, and I'm sitting there during our first combat, and I remember thinking, well, wait, how do I attack these guys? I don't even know. So my aliens are just kind of standing there waiting for me to give the divine word so they know how to fight. And then I realized that it's just that chart. The alien, if the alien goes to attack, if the xenomorph goes to attack, I just roll on this chart, and this is the crap that happens. And I'm like, that's not fair.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't like anything I'd ever seen before, and that was pretty cool. I mean, it could just be like, and you're dead.
Yeah. Like, you...
Didn't matter what level, quote-unquote, you are,
They got shot, acid spray hits your face, you're dead.
Oh, man. Brutal, but it's fun.
And I think, too, me being a huge Alien fan anyway, I was really just drawn into that just based on the content itself.
Okay.
And of course, on the flip side, on D&D, I'm very new to all of that, so I don't necessarily know, the key players. And I'll be the first one to admit, when I watched Stranger Things, I had no idea how D&D solid all of that was.
Oh, yeah.
And because I watched the whole series before the early seasons or whatever, before I'd even played.
I didn't even think about that.
So,
Wow.
Vecna, I just thought that was a name, or the Demogorgon, or anything. I had no idea that it was connected to D&D directly.
Oh, see, it's so different when I was watching. I'm just like, every time they say something like, oh, look at that.
Yeah.
Oh, they referenced that. Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, I mean,
that's interesting.
So I got that they were playing D&D at the very beginning, but I didn't get that was the theme throughout the entire freaking thing. And now when I went back to watch the first season, I'm like, what the crap was I smoking? Because why didn't I catch that? And then, oh yeah, because I didn't know anything. So.
Okay, now coming back to between D&D and playing like Alien, doing some sci-fi survival horror. I know with 5e, we're all very spoiled with maps, and Glenn's got the whole digital thing going on with the TV and all those digital maps, and got tons of miniatures and everything.
Mm-hmm.
We pretty much, after all those years, want for nothing when it comes to playing.
Right.
But now, when we going from 5e to Alien role-playing game, we did mostly theater of the mind. Did you like one style over the other? Like if you had to pick maps and miniatures in any system versus theater of the mind and any system, what do you think you like better? Does it matter to you?
So I think that would be contingent on what was happening. So, in a lot of the sessions that we do with 5e, we might have an encounter here and there, or we might have a very RP session, and I'm good with all of it. I always think it's awesome when we have our big encounter and we use the Dwarven Forge and all of that physical stuff, and you can kind of see the battle space. And from a tactical perspective, that kind of tickles that fancy for me when you're talking about battle. Okay. Now, from just talking through it and kind of understanding what the space looks like and this, that, and the other thing, I prefer a theater of the mind from the RP side. I don't need a map in miniatures and stuff like that. You know, you describe a character to me or you describe a monster to me, that resonates more than a miniature does, because even though like, oh, he looks like this, well, that's cool. You know, is he always mad? Is he, you know, does is there like, you know, think about it from like an owlbear perspective. You know, owlbears can be like little cute cuddly things, or they can be very vicious, you know, crazy creatures that rip your head off too. So I think in that respect, I like Theater of the Mind from RP and maybe miniatures and stuff like that, so I can see the battle space and say, okay, well, I want to go this way to flank, or I want to do this in order to engage multiple enemies, or whatever.
Okay. Do you think, and I know with the Alien RPG, we did a little, it was more theater of the mind for combat. Do you think that was not as good as being able to see the battle space? You think it's more advantageous for you to be able to see the battle space than just to hear it described and just kind of do some guesswork?
Yeah, I think so. At least have some idea as to, okay, you're going down this hallway, there's, you know, side entrances or whatever, because then if I'm trying to like picture it, and to me, I want to see like what my options are without, I guess, without having to ask you, is like, okay, is there a door behind me? Or
So even just like a quick sketch, not necessarily a metered out 1 inch square battle grid or miniatures, even just a sketch on a piece of paper, like, hey, this is the quick layout.
Yeah.
And we can just kind of go from there. Okay.
Yeah, like you're in a dark corridor, the lights are off, but you see a light flickering at the end of the hallway down there. You know, do you approach? You know, or are you checking corners? You know, what are you doing? And I think just at least having a kind of I would say a mental layout as to what's going on, a picture for your brain, I guess.
Okay. So not necessarily, you don't necessarily need to have it metered out exactly, just so long as you know exact kind of sort of what the area is like.
Right.
So it's not too bad.
And I think we saw that a couple of times when we were when we played the Alien game, because it gave us like the complex and said, okay, you know, over here was the med bay or whatever. So then it's like, okay, yep, I got it. And then, you know, go into Theater of the Mind, because it's like, okay, well, I'm over here and I'm really far away from the med bay, so if somebody's hurt, then I just got to understand, how do I get to that juncture, I guess.
Okay. So would it be safe to assume that your favorite genre is still probably fantasy, even though you've only played 2 different ones?
I don't know, because the Rifts thing has really got me intrigued, because I think the fantasy thing is cool, but I kind of like the modern or you know, almost like futuristic sci-fi element that you could bring to that. So if, you know, say we could run a 5e campaign, but me use I would say like a sci-fi like space character, I think that would be cool.
Okay.
You know, to kind of meld the two. And that's where I'm, again, more interested in the Rifts thing, because now you can be a wizard or you can be a cyber guy. So
Rifts always intrigued me. I do like it just because it is that sci-fi magic apocalypse in the far future, and it's really cool. I like it a lot. I think because of a lot of options, and I feel like there's more for me to work with as a dungeon master. I think there's more for me to work with as a game master in a setting like that. At least for me, I think, or maybe if it's not more to work with, it's more that appeals to me to work with. Even though I like magic, I like fantasy, I like all the monsters and stuff, but there's just something about all the techie mixed in with that I really like.
Yeah.
But that's cool.
So I mean, you remember when they did the remake for Romeo and Juliet, right? Where it was like the modern Romeo and Juliet.
Oh yeah.
So for daggers and rapiers and swords, they were all guns. So if you could do that in a 5e thing, where it's like, okay, well, you have this type of dagger, or you have this type of sword, but they're guns instead, and it's a more, I would say, advanced culture, then I think that'd be interesting.
Okay. What do you think your favorite thing about role playing is?
I think the biggest thing for me is the social element. You know, just being around, you know, like-minded people, and everybody essentially being, you know, having that communication and physical interaction with a group of people who all are having fun doing the same thing. I think there's a level of commitment to people who play tabletop role play that is kind of lost on a lot of other things that are people or hobbies.
Okay.
Like me, I'm a video game guy. I play video games forever, and it's you do play with other people, and you have interaction with other people over intercom or whatever when you're playing multiplayer games. But it's completely different than when you're sitting and seeing somebody's reaction, and you're having those side conversations and laughing together. Yeah, you can have fun in this virtual multiplayer setting, but nothing will ever beat personal interaction around a table. And I would even go as far as to say with Kyle being at a distance and him being in there virtual with our display and everything, that's pretty close, because you're still being able to see his reactions and talk to him and pull him in.
That's actually worked out pretty good, because I wasn't sure how well it would work. And I remember the first time I was real impressed with that. It wasn't necessarily with when Kyle Skyped in, but we had done it a while back with Travis. And he's across from the table, and I remember thinking, man, I need to get this out of the way. I'm just going to ask Travis. I said, hey, Travis, and just in a conversational tone. And I almost had to pretend like I was talking to the person next to him so I wouldn't yell, because it's that cell phone effect. I said, hey, Travis, can you hear me if I talk just like this? And he's like, oh, yeah, man, I totally hear you just fine. That's perfect. I was like, oh, great. And I turned to who was sitting next to me, and I said, and I told him, I was like, oh, yeah, man, we can just talk to him normal. And he's like, oh, yeah. And then the dude, he yells practically, hey, Travis! And I'm like, oh, man. It's just,
you just ruined the whole effect.
It's just funny, man. No, you don't have to yell. Oh, okay. So Travis, I'm like, no, don't yell. Yeah. It's so funny. But that's just how it is, though, too.
Yeah.
I have to, for some reason, resist the urge to shout across the room at a screen. I don't know why.
Yeah.
Probably because I shout at my Google all the time.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. So anyways, let's see. I guess, is there anything that you like the least about role-playing? If there's anything, there doesn't have to be.
So, I would say one thing that it becomes awkward for me. If there's a lot of interruptions during a game, like I'm trying to pay attention to the DM, and I'm really I want to understand what's happening and how we do this. So if there's a lot of interruptions, I get aggravated, or you have issues where two people aren't necessarily seeing eye to eye across the table when it comes to how you're going to approach something or whatever like that. Then it just creates an awkward for, to me, it's like the whole table gets quiet, and we're like, okay, well, hopefully
it kind of grows outside of the game a little bit and kind of disrupts the general vibe.
Yeah, I think those are I would say if there was any negative, I would say that's the only thing.
And I can't imagine that there's a group out there that's never ever had that kind of problem.
Oh, yeah.
It's just going to happen sooner or later, I think.
Yeah, I mean, with me, I have to keep my phone on me a lot of times just for work. So if my phone's going off and I got to get up from the table, and
some games aren't just meant to be. I've been at tables where it's like, as soon as you sit down and everybody sits down, someone's got to get up because, man, there's an important work phone call, and they sit down and I'm like, all right, now I got to get up because either somebody's calling me or I have to take care of business, if you know what I mean,
Yeah.
And I got to step away because I drank too much water, so all that good stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, but those things usually, I think for the most part, we can usually get around those pretty easily.
Yep.
But that is always the thing, is stuff that's kind of breaking out of the vibe, especially when we have 4 hours at best a lot of times nowadays.
Yeah, and it's weird too, because that time, you could sit there and play for 8 hours and it wouldn't feel like it.
Man, at 4 or 5 hours, I'm hitting my stride and I want to keep going, and I know I can't.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's the hard thing, and this kind of goes back to what I was saying. You have to have a level of commitment to that time.
And it's pretty impressive that that anybody can even manage to find time nowadays. I feel like to sit and commit and to play, especially, and it's different. Maybe if you're single, or maybe you don't have to work quite as much as everybody else. I don't know, because I own my own business.
Off shifts,
so it's easier for me. Off shifts, though, all sorts of stuff. But then, even though I feel like I've got a lot of time and I've got a lot of wiggle room, I find myself all that extra time I supposedly have, it gets backfilled with other projects and other things I have to do. And man, it's just weird how it's just everybody tries so hard to commit, and just sometimes it just, like the gaming gods are like, no, not now.
Right.
It has to be the next third week after the fourth Monday of next year. What? That's when we can play?
Yeah.
Oh, it's so frustrating.
Yeah, and that's what, one of the things I think I hit up Corey when we were playing his campaign or whatever, because we were having, I would say, every other week, or there'd be some gapping on when we would play. It's like, well, can't we open up a Discord chat to where we almost have these side conversations and develop our characters through this as a filler until we get to the next game? And he's like, yeah, but from the DM's perspective, trying to keep up with all this other stuff that's happening, it's got to be a pain.
Yeah,
it seemed like it'd be a cool idea, but yeah, it would be tough on the DM.
Yeah, I've tried it here and there, and man, it just doesn't work as much as I want it to. I think it's just because usually if I'm not gaming, then I'm just doing a whole bunch of other stuff, know. And you look at it like, oh, look back, oh, that's so cool, I'm going to look at it later. And then you sit down at the table, hey, so you never gave me an answer about X, Y, and Z. Yeah, that's probably because I was out of town, I had a flat, I had to take my dog to the vet. Oh my gosh. There was that couple hours right before bed, I thought about it and said, nah, I'll do it tomorrow, and then I forgot.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're kind of getting to the point where we're wrapping up for this one. But knowing what you know now, is there any kind of advice that you'd like to give the new players, if you want to give any kind of advice?
I'd say just for new players, really try to understand the core of the systems instead of just kind of just doing what somebody's telling you, just so you have a better understanding of the core elements. I thought it was really good. You were doing the sessions at the shop there for a minute where you were giving DM advice, where you were teaching people how to be a DM. And if there's any kind of session like that where they know an experienced DM who can just be like, okay, this is how I do what I do, I think, just how do you build a character sheet? How do you, go through all that, and how do you flip through the books? To me, that was awesome. That helped me out.
Oh, okay. Okay, well, that's good to know.
Yeah.
That's cool. So definitely get into the books and just know how your character is built and why your stats are the way they are and how it all works.
Yeah, and that's kind of like I was hitting you up for the Rifts character because it's brand new to me.
It's a lot. We'll sit down. We'll definitely have some sessions to go over that, because I definitely want to have a couple sessions 0, so we kind of build into that. But it's kind of a few months out, realistically.
Yeah.
But but it's a big world, and I want to make sure we're all kind of on the same understanding for the game before we go into it.
Yeah. But yeah, just really being able to have somebody just run you from cradle to the grave on building your character, because to me that really builds your solid foundation for that entire campaign. Not only do you understand how you got the stuff on your sheet, and makes it easier for checks and stuff. So
cool versus just that auto build feature.
Yep.
Okay, all right, well, I guess that is all for this discussion. And Cliff, I really appreciate you being one of my guinea pigs and jumping in on this for me, especially with short notice. And I guess that's going to be it. Thank you again very much for coming.
Thank you.
I'm David Hunt, owner of GameMasters Guild, telling you to stay safe, play great games, and we'll see you real soon.